I will present the results of a cooperation between our web archiving team and the DH Lab, the Lab for Digital Humanities, here at the National Library of Norway. Very briefly, we've extracted 1.5 million news articles from WAC, enriched it with metadata, and provided it as data for computational analysis. So I'll start by presenting the problem we've been trying to solve and the workflow we developed for reframing WARC data to corpus data. Then I'll show how students, researchers, and others can use an open API, but even computational notebooks and user-friendly web apps to analyze it. And summing up, I'll give some overview of current limitations and opportunities. So what I'm presenting has very recently been published as an article in the Journal of Open Humanities Data. Open access, Creative Commons, so feel free to download and share it. But first, the problem we are trying to solve. So how can we provide access to analyze news content from the web archive at scale? So news content, it represents a significant part of the collection. We also know that researchers regard this as highly valuable material for research, and it's important for academic knowledge production. Also, we have a DH lab that has worked for more than 12 years to build research infrastructure around our digitized collection, like books and newspapers. So in this pilot study, we've wanted to see if we could build on these experiences with the digitized content and apply that to the web archive content. There are, of course, some legal context to navigate here. All news are in principle copyrighted, so we can't just hand out the complete text. And therefore, we mostly provide aggregated numbers and some very short snippets of text. So further, we're not allowed to share personal data that is not already regarded as widely known. And essentially, this corpus is therefore limited to edited journalism. So everything we have in the Corpora has been declared by the editor that they take the legal and ethical responsibility for what they have published. Sounds like a nightmare to kind of sort out this in WARC. But if you extract the content and pay some attention to the semantic information, we find it actually quite easy to identify. So this is our workflow for transforming WARCs into text data. What we first do is extracting HTML from WARC. We remove boilerplate, which for our purpose is very important. If we only were to build like a search and discovery service, we would keep a lot of noise and have a high recall. But for NLP purposes, we want high precision. So we remove like navigational elements, footers, and so on, in principle isolating the text itself. And all that is then cleaned and stored in a full text database, PostgreSQL. And I should really say also Magnus, which many of you heard on Tuesday, he's sitting in the front. He's been really crucial to make this happen, and also applying the DH Lab workflow later. Next step here, when we have built the full text database, has been to a technical curation, filtration. So first we used to source all these news publication titles. We used an approach called environmental scan to try to reduce the bias of the selection. And then we developed an algorithm to decide whether these news sites had a responsible editor or not. And then we had a data set of 268 domains, which we filtered the database for. And also we did some heuristics to take out some unmoderated content and such. We also, in this process, extract and apply some granular metadata about the language, for example, of each text, the city of the editorial board for that online newspaper, and such and so on. And lastly, how we prepare this for computation is basically we tokenize the text. breaking down the text into individual separate words. And we also segment it by paragraph. I'll come back to that very soon, but that's really important to try to comply with copyright. So the end result here is databases with URNs, full text, and metadata. Here's some overall stats about the web news collection. Won't delve into the numbers, but it's 1.5 million texts, almost 800 million words, 268 publications. There's various languages, so about 89% bokmål, 10% nynorsk, and 1% Northern Sami. But we also find Polish, English, Spanish, Danish, a lot of other languages. We checked it. Are these like false positives? But they're actually, the language detection is really good. So it appears that some Norwegian publications also have some niche targeting other languages. Yeah, also a wide range of type of publications. So I'll just show some practical examples. This is the API that we offer people to use. From here you can build Corpora, you can retrieve data based on various metadata. And here's a schema with like the different attributes you can use to build Corpora. So it's the doc type that says web news. It's a DHLab ID, which is a unique ID in the DHLab. It's a title of the publication, domain name, city of the editor, a language code by the ISO standard, the target URI that was used for harvesting, the timestamp for harvesting, but also the timestamp you see for when we extracted the text from WAC. So if we, in the future, make new iterations on this, we can make versions as well. And of course, in the bottom, the URN is a unique, it's pointing back to the original record in the works. So for those who want to do this at scale, the DHLab offers a Python package for building Corpora and perform various analysis. And the web archive, we've also made a notebook, so that should help some non-programmers that want to test computation. For example, they can visualize some general insights about the Corpora. So in the top, the tree map is showing the distribution by title. Below is showing the distribution by harvesting date. This is also actually for a corpus we built with the keynote Corona. And the reason we found out that there were mentions already in 2019 is because some newspapers are talking about the sun's corona. So that's, yeah. However, most humanist and social scientist scholars, they're not very comfortable with notebooks either. So the DHLab has some very user-friendly web apps, which you can also use for this. If you want to test this, it's unfortunately only in Norwegian by the moment, but it's dh.nb.no/apps. So anyone can test what we have here. So for example, the Corpus app that allows you to build a corpus of relevant, so that's a body of relevant text you want to analyze. So you can tailor it by document type, by certain terms, for example, and other parameters. And you can also adjust the chronological span, choose like certain titles or even languages. And then the user can display that as tabular data and also download an Excel file with metadata about the corpus. In the concordance app, if anyone are not familiar with the concordance expression, it's a list of keywords with context. So here we uploaded the corpus definition, entered the word press conference as our keyword, and in return we get the word press conference with up to 12 words before and after, so the researchers can see the immediate context of the word. If you try to kind of be creative and try to find the next and the next, that will always stop by the paragraph. So at least that's a measure we take to make it extremely difficult to kind of reconstruct the complete text outside of our infrastructure. And as you see, this is far less than Google provides. It's also less than our digital library provides. So we're at least trying to do what we can to protect the copyright, but also allow the researchers to do their studies. So in a similar manner, this collocation app allows you to find words co-located close to the keyword. We use the same Corpora here, and for press conference, for those of you who are familiar with Scandinavian languages, it's a lot of health authorities that shows up. In the second column, you have the raw frequency of the word, but also in the third column, we can use a reference corpora based on like how often this word is commonly used in the Norwegian language to calculate the relative frequency. So I guess the main takeaways here is it's of course always limitations to all solutions. These are only aggregates and short snippets, so we currently don't have no immediate access to the full complete text. And also the solution we developed in the pilot study that is tailored for distant reading of text. So if you're curious on images and stuff, we're not there yet that we've developed this for the web archive, but we will look into this in the web data project, of course. Also links, interlinked documents, yeah, that's work that has to be done. It was not the scope of this pilot. And further, researchers, they are very often interested in when a text was published. Currently, we have data about when it was harvested. We had a look at the sample, and it appears that most of the texts are harvested one day after publication. But it's possible there are techniques to make guesstimates about publication dates as well, so that might be something we will look into in the future. But I think there are some huge opportunities. So you can do this at scale. The scope now is only 2019 to 22. It's a short period. We hope when we expand this to the whole collection, we have some guesstimates about 15 million texts plus, which are edited news. I think the method and techniques from NLP, which are often used for the digitized content, they are well proven. So instead of trying to invent everything from the scratch in the web archive, we can use techniques that are already used by other colleagues. And we see that even very qualitatively oriented researchers, they think this is very valuable heuristics in the start of the project, just to see what does the data say. For researchers used to work with digitized newspapers, the data here has a very high data quality. No OCRs. You have, of course, the journalists' typos. We keep those. No problems with like layout analysis and such. And in most cases, a very natural article segmentation. We also see that this is interesting far beyond academia. So it's interesting for government, businesses, and so on, journalists, students, economists. Very briefly, ending, some of you heard about this on Tuesday at the General Assembly, but in September we will start the building of a web data research infrastructure, which is founded by the Research Council of Norway. And the aim is kind of to combine these experiences from the pilot with what the DH Lab has done for many years, but also with what has been done in the international community. So you all have a folder in your bag saying something more about this. And if you're curious, please reach out with questions about that after the conference. Absolutely. So thank you very much for your attention.